You know, every world-changing technology has an origin story, but few are as fascinating or as mysterious as the one behind blockchain. This isn't just a story about lines of code. It's a story about an idea, a crisis, and a revolution. Okay, so let's dive right in and uncover how this whole thing actually began. Our story starts with a ghost, really. A name without a face. Satoshi Nakamoto. This is the pseudonym for the person, or maybe the group of people, who wrote the paper that started it all. To this day, nobody knows who they really are. But what they created would go on to change technology forever. The real question, though, is what problem was this mysterious inventor even trying to solve? You see, the idea of blockchain didn't just appear out of thin air. Not at all. It was actually born from this decades-long quest for a totally new kind of money. A dream that was being chased by a very, very particular group of people. To really get blockchain, you first have to understand the cypherpunks. Now, these weren't just programmers, they were activists. They saw cryptography, the science of secure communication, as more than just a tool for protecting information. For them, it was a force for social and political change. They actually believed it could reshape the entire balance of power between regular people and huge institutions. And this right here, this lays out their core mission perfectly. They envisioned a world where you could send money directly to anyone else, anywhere on the planet, with complete privacy. A world without big banks taking their cut or governments looking over your shoulder. The goal was pure, unadulterated individual empowerment. But actually building it, well, that was the hard part. The path to creating this new money was long, and it was filled with these brilliant attempts that just didn't quite stick the landing. It turns out, creating digital cash is a whole lot harder than it sounds. I mean, people had been chipping away at this problem for years. If you go all the way back to 1989, David Chaum created something called DigiCash, which was a super early shot at electronic money. Then, a decade later, you have Nick Szabo proposing BitGold. Sounds pretty familiar, right? These were absolutely groundbreaking ideas, but they all slammed into the same fundamental roadblock. And this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. How do you stop somebody from spending the same digital dollar twice? Think about it. In the real world, if I hand you a dollar bill, I don't have it anymore. It's gone. But with a digital file, you can just copy and paste it. Traditionally, a bank solves this problem by keeping a central ledger of every single transaction. But remember, the cypherpunks wanted to get rid of the bank. So how could a network of total strangers trust each other without a middleman? This was the puzzle that nobody could solve. For years, that puzzle stayed unsolved. The dream of digital cash was pretty much just that, a dream. But then the world changed. A global crisis created the perfect storm, and that made a radical new idea not just interesting, but, well, necessary. 2008. This one year. This is the pivot on which our entire story turns. The global financial crisis just sent these massive shockwaves across the entire world. It exposed just how incredibly fragile the centralized banking system was. Trust in the very institutions that were supposed to be managing our money just evaporated, seemingly overnight. And suddenly, that cypherpunk dream of a system without all those traditional gatekeepers, it seemed less like a radical fantasy and way more like a brilliant solution. And right at this moment of maximum distrust in the old system, an email quietly landed in the inboxes of a small cryptography mailing list. A solution had arrived, and it came from our mysterious figure, Satoshi Nakamoto. It was just a 9-page white paper, but it elegantly solved the problem that had stumped so many brilliant people for so long. It proposed a system for peer-to-peer electronic cash that didn't need a bank. It didn't need any trusted third party at all. The secret ingredient was a revolutionary technology that Satoshi called blockchain. And this is how Satoshi did it. It's brilliant, really. First, instead of some private ledger hidden inside a bank, there's a public ledger that everyone on the network can see. It's all out in the open. Second, to add new transactions, computers on the network, we call them miners, have to compete to solve these complex math problems. That process is what keeps the network secure and validates everything. And third, and this is the magic, the entire system is decentralized. There's no central server to hack, no single company to shut down. The network is run by its users, for its users. So, a white paper is one thing, but functioning code? That's a whole other ballgame. After proposing the idea, Satoshi, with some help from a few early believers, like the legendary Hal Finney, actually set out to build it. And then, just a few months later, on January 3rd, 2009, it happened. The very first block of transactions, which is now famous as the Genesis block, was created. That was the moment. The Bitcoin blockchain flickered into existence. The theoretical idea had just become a living, breathing network. So it's really no surprise who was first drawn to this brand new technology. The early adopters were that very same community that had dreamed of it for years. These people were driven by a really deep skepticism of traditional financial and government institutions. So they saw Bitcoin and the blockchain underneath it not just as some fun tech project, but as a genuinely powerful tool for financial freedom and for individual sovereignty. So you go from a cypherpunk dream to a global financial crisis to an anonymous white paper, and then the Genesis block gets mined and a revolution begins. Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared a couple of years later, and their identity is still a complete mystery. But their invention, the blockchain, has totally taken on a life of its own. It's evolving in ways its creator may have never, ever imagined. Which leaves all of us with the big question: what will be the next chapter in this story?